Okay.
Alrighty, thank y'all for being here this evening. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for safe streets, and in order to have safe streets, we need to have street lighting for our residents to be more comfortable, to feel more safe where they live, play. So 311, Public Works, CenterPoint, and Urban Forestry, we are here tonight to give the processes of trying to get new light poles and um, the cost of a light poles and things of that nature, and how to report street lighting and when there's needing to be maintenance. We can start with a few introductions from everyone, and then we can jump right into the presentations.
Sure, I guess I'll start. Let me share my screen here.
We don't have to share just yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
just, if everyone going to do a quick introduction of who they are and where
Okay.
neighborhood they're representing.
Sure, no problem. Hi, I'm Martin Herrera, and I manage the streetlight section for the City of Houston within Public Works. All streetlight installations or requests, they go through my office, and we approve them, and we provide requests to CenterPoint to install the lighting.
Thank you, Mark, for showing up tonight.
So I'll go next. I'm Lindsay Williams. I am the lead planner for the Sunnyside Complete Community, and I also am a planner for the Cashmere Gardens community. And I am going to pass it to, I'm looking at the participants. So next on my list is Ann Whitlock.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually sitting on the side of the road because I just got a flat tire, so I may have to jump off at any time. But I am the director of Connect Community, and I think there might be some other Gulfing connectors on this call. Noelia or Taiba, are you on? Oh, they'll be jumping on because they are really the people in the neighborhood who have the.
Next on my list is Jeremy Burks.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeremy Burks. I'm with the City of Houston Urban Forestry Office. I am the Division Manager of Urban Forestry, and I will be talking a little bit about trees, or how to report your tree issues.
Devontae Caldwell.
Good evening. Excuse me, Devontae Caldwell. I'm with the Planning and Development Department, and I am a planner for Cashmere Gardens and near Northside Complete Communities.
And Benny tonight leading us.
Yes, Benny Chambers. I'm the lead planner for A-Leaf Westwood, and as of recently, 3rd Ward as well.
Cynthia Sidney.
Yes, I live in Houston, Fort Bend.
Thank you for joining us. Martin Herrera.
Well, he just went.
That was me first. Pardon me, I'm having a little latency with my. Yeah, I mentioned I was the one who first spoke. I manage the streetlight section for the City of Houston in Public Works.
Thank you. It bumped you back to the bottom because of your camera went off.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Jessica Holsley.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Jessica Halsey, 2nd Ward, Complete Communities. And thank you for inviting me to participate. And I'm really interested to hear each and every one speaker. Um, it's very important um, to have representatives telling us about the issues that really concern us. Like right now, it gets dark pretty early. So I'm very happy to attend this meeting.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Mary Sias.
Hello, my name is Mary Sias. I'm a lifelong resident of Sunnyside. I've been involved with Complete Communities for just over a year now. I love being involved. I enjoy the direction that this committee is going, and I'm here to do my part to help make it a better place for the citizens over here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Randy Moorhead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Moorhead. I'm with CenterPoint Energy. I'm a service consultant, and I also work with Martin with the city improvement projects for City of Houston. So I handle all lighting requests for any type of road widening or drainage, etc. So.
Thank you. Natasha Butler.
Hi, good evening. Hi, I'm Natasha Butler. I am a longtime resident of the Westwood side, but I also represent the A-Leaf side, so A-Leaf Westwood Super Neighborhood Council.
Thank you for joining. Patricia Cabrera.
Good evening. I'm a director of East End Communities, and we're working under a Hogg Foundation grant in the Magnolia Park area. So we've been participating in Complete Communities for Magnolia Park.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Regina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Regina Gardner, and I'm just a community grass tops out in Fort Bend, Houston, Super Neighborhood 41.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Tanya Sawyer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Sawyer. I am the lead planner for Fort Bend, Houston, and Gulfton's Complete Community.
Thanks, Tanya. And Cameron Yurtley.
Hi there, Cam Yurdy, work with the City of Houston as a planner, focused specifically on economic development projects, but glad to be here tonight.
Thanks for joining. Okay, Benny, I'm at the end of my list. I'm going to share really quickly, and then I'll pass it back to you.
All righty. Well, we can start the presentations. Got up first, Mr. Martin from Public Works.
Okay, let me get my screen and share it with you. Want to make sure everybody can see my screen. Can everybody see the streetlight application, request application?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Again, my name is Martin Herrera, and I manage the streetlight section for the City of Houston and Houston Public Works. And I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough to be part of this and spend your time this evening. Street lighting has come more and more to play within the City of Houston than before. Even more so now that people want lighting. The city has its own vision, a vision zero, to make sure streets are safe for pedestrians. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of requesting a street light, and it's pretty simple, to be honest with you. And no pun intended. That when I'm through with this, I hope to light up your life. That was anyway. Just for I had to throw something like that in. But anyway, anyway, this is the Streetlight application, and it's something that you can download off the city's website at www.houstontx.gov, or you can call 311 and you can request an application, and it'll be emailed to you. So what I did was, we'll go through, there's a few parts, and again, it's a pretty high level. It's just real simple. Basically, you're going to fill out an application. We're going to review it. And if this city feels that it deems that it needs more lighting, then we'll authorize it. So we'll dive into the request for the street lighting. And I've highlighted some of just the key points of the application. Now, this first one, when you do get the application, we ask that you email it back to this website, well, to this email address, traffic.hotline. Now, people sometimes don't want to email, and there's always an option to mail it or fax it. Some people, we still get many faxes for streetlight requests. And if you fax it, it'll be faxed to this number up here. If you mail it, it'll be mailed to this PO box, and it'll come eventually to my office there. And so let's go to part A of the streetlight study. Now, what's required is a requested street that you want the lighting on, and the boundaries, the from and to that you want the street lighting to be installed. And this is just a little example or picture. Let's say if somebody wanted lighting along Smith Street, and they would type in Smith Street here for the requested street, and it'll be from, First Avenue to Fifth Avenue, and those are your boundaries. Okay. We prefer streets as boundary limits as opposed to block number ranges. Okay. When it's defined as intersections or boundaries, it's just more defined and much. So there isn't any misunderstanding as to where you want the lighting. The application, of course, needs to have a contact person, the information for the person who's requesting this. And simply, it's going to be your name, your address, the city, and the zip code. Now, you don't need to provide the phone number, but sometimes the information that's presented above here, it's a little, it's ambiguous, or it's just not clear. And sometimes we may need to call the customer to let them know exactly where they're at. And not only that, we also use that phone number to call the customer or the requester to let them know that we have indeed received their application. It's up to you. If you want to put the email, we prefer that you use an email. And that way, when we do respond to you, we respond via email much faster than sending it through the mail. Because if you don't give us your email, then we'll just send the results through the mail. Now, the purpose of lighting. Unfortunately, people understand the purpose of street lights, and it's understandable. And I think what we want to make sure is that people understand the primary purpose of the street lighting is what it says. It's to illuminate the roadway. They're not intended to provide security lighting, although they do to some extent provide some security from a pedestrian or a constituent's perspective. It's not intended to light up a pedestrian walkway, parking lot lighting, or any other private lighting. But its primary purpose to illuminate the roadway. Because of the optics of the fixtures, though, they do provide some additional lighting either on the sidewalk or near a parking lot, or near, if it's in front of a residence, the feeling of security there. But and I just want to just impress that it's not its primary purpose. What it is to illuminate the roadway. And of course the segment that you're wanting to light up the roadway needs to be within the city limits. We get requests all the time from individuals who want us to light up roadways that are not within the city. Now, just a little note here that all streetlights are installed, owned, and maintained by CenterPoint Energy. But after we review the application and we deem that a light needs to be installed, ultimately the CenterPoint would get its directive from the city of Houston to install the street lighting. The types of street lighting that are installed. There are wood pole lights and there's metal pole lights, and then there's wattages of those respective lights. And so the type of light that the standard light that we use is LED. It's the light color, the white color light. And it can be mounted on a wood pole or a metal pole. Where possible, the city is going to authorize streetlights on wood poles. But sometimes these neighborhoods don't have wood poles. And if they don't have wood poles, well, then the next option is to authorize street lighting on metal pole lights. Okay. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the cost, because there may be a cost associated with the metal pole light, depending on what type of road it is on. The wattage of the street lights, the 45 watts in residential areas, 95 watt or 115 watt along major thoroughfares and collector streets. I think everybody can agree that the lighting levels required on a local residential road are different than, let's say, the lighting that's required on a major thoroughfare like Westheimer, or Gessner, where the lighting levels are much higher. And so that's the reason why we use different wattages. Metal pole lights and their spacing. The city has done studies in the past, as well as CenterPoint, and we found out that the best spacing for the lights, it's approximately 200 feet apart, plus or minus 20 feet, and that adequately illuminates the roadway based on the wattage that's used and the type of roadway. The streetlights, and this is also a CenterPoint energy requirement, they're installed typically between property lines, so that they don't install, or they're not supposed to install lighting, and the city doesn't authorize lighting to be installed in the middle of somebody's yard, even though we know that where the streetlights are installed is actually the city's road right of way and city property. The appearance of it being in the middle of that property, it's not. We don't want that. We want it on the side lots of the property lines between the houses. The wooden pole distances are a little bit different. We're kind of limited to where wood poles are at. They are where they're at, and sometimes they don't give the best or the ideal spacing. So there's a little bit more latitude on the spacing for wood pole lights when we look at that. It'll be 150 feet or 200 feet. Now, there's one thing I forget to mention, that when we do a survey, one of the things that we look at is we see where the existing lighting is at. Because what we don't want is that, we're not going to put or authorize a light. Somebody may say, I want a light in front of my yard, and then we find out, or, in front of their property, and then we find out that there's a light just across the street, 2 properties down. And obviously that's going to be too close because that exceeds these city standards here. Now, cost for streetlights, and this is where it does get a little confusing. Typically, well, it's more involved, not so much confusing. Typically, there is if there are wood poles, there is not a charge. Okay, that is typical. Although there could be a cost, and it's rare, but there may be a cost. And if there is a cost, once we do our survey and we determine that wood pole lights are needed, we have a pretty good idea if it's going to require cost or not. And if we do, then we'll send that to CenterPoint for verification. If there is a cost, then they'll provide that to the city, and then we'll give the city the option, we'll give the constituent the option to pay for that cost. It's not very much, but nonetheless, it is a cost. And again, it is rare that the city is charged or the constituent is charged for installing streetlights on wood poles. Now, metal poles. Metal poles are handled a little different. Okay, per the city ordinance, and that's section 40-3, the ordinance requires the applicant to pay for the first year's operating costs. I've been asked many times, what's it cost to install a streetlight? Well, typically, if it's in a residential neighborhood, the installation cost is zero. But there is, per city ordinance, the first year's operating cost that's required. And that's generally around $200 per light, depending on the number of lights that we find out that is needed. You know, because if you give us a stretch of 3 blocks along the roadway and you need 4 lights or 5 lights, it'll be approximately $200 per street light. But that final cost will be provided in the summary that we send to you, in addition to a map that shows where we will propose street lighting. Now, this is where it does, get a little more involved on major thoroughfares. The city is responsible for installing lighting on major thoroughfares. However, and that's why we state on here, there's no charge from the city for any streetlight, wood or metal, if the roadway is a major thoroughfare. But one of the provisions though, is that there has to be a planned capital improvement project for the road. And the city, we don't know, when these planned improvement projects actually come out. I mean, my group doesn't know. Those are planned in advance, they're budgeted, and depending on when the budgeting comes up, then it's installed. The construction for that, or reconstruction for that road, actually begins. During that time when it's being planned and designed to reconstruct a street, a major thoroughfare, at that point, we're also looking at the lighting, because not only do we want, the city wants to reconstruct the thoroughfare, we're going to also make sure that it has adequate lighting. And so that's why there's no charge for this, for lighting, wooden or metal, on a major thoroughfare. However, some people say, well, I still need lighting on the major thoroughfare. And that's where we do give an opportunity that if the customer is just adamant about having lighting, we have on occasion have been approached by HOAs and developers who have offered to pay for that lighting along the major thoroughfare, even though there is not a planned CIP project, a capital improvement project in the near future for that, at the time that they want the lighting. And what the city does is that we work with CenterPoint to mitigate the cost for those lights along the major thoroughfare, and we do a pretty good job of it. And quite honestly, without getting to the exact amount, it's of the 90% of the time that we've requested, the street lighting on major thoroughfares have been requested by a developer or an HOA, and they find out, well, we've got to pay for it, but when we give them the cost from CenterPoint, they go, wow, that's not that bad after all, we're good for it. See, so again, we will do our best to mitigate cost. Just an FYI, I used to work for CenterPoint Energy, and I work closely with Randy Moorhead, who will be speaking later. He mentioned earlier that he handles all the capital improvement projects, and I used to be the subject matter expert in lighting at CenterPoint. And working with Randy is great. He's a hard worker. He does a really good job. And when we need costs such as that, we get some really good. We get the most economic price that we can get, the best price we can. So, but that's for major thoroughfares. But again, going back to your residential road, your local road, there is no installation cost, but there is, per ordinance, the operating cost that we mentioned, around $200 per light. And then towards the end, people are always calling about streetlight outages. I mentioned earlier, CenterPoint Energy, they install and they maintain the lighting within the city of Houston. They do have a pretty large service area that includes other cities, so they're responsible for, if I remember the last count, of over 520,000 lights in their service area. So that's a lot of lights. And within the city of Houston, I think the last count that I saw, the city pays the monthly bill for 177,000 of those lights, to the tune of about $27 million a year. The lighting, again, the cost mentioned earlier is just a first year's operating cost, and that's just a one-time cost. And the installation cost, CenterPoint, installs it, and of course the city thereafter pays the monthly fee for every streetlight, the maintenance cost, because once the streetlight is installed, there's a cost to maintain that per month per streetlight. So if there is a streetlight that's out, you can go to this website, or you can call their number. Now, when you call their number, it's preferable that you do provide a 6-digit pole number. Why are pole numbers so important? Every streetlight, in theory, it has a unique 6-digit pole number that's stenciled on the streetlight, and it's on the street side. Over time, some of these stencils, they diminish, but for the most part, every streetlight is required to have a 6-digit streetlight pole number, and that pole number is much like the Social Security number. It's unique. It identifies that streetlight in the field, so that when you provide a 6-digit number, the CenterPoint Energy knows that they what pole to go to, because they've got that in their database. So if you don't have the streetlight number, all is not lost, not to worry. You can still report it using the streetlight reporting website, and you can use their GIS map that they have on there, where you can actually point to an area there. Now, sometimes streetlights aren't actually out, but they appear that they're out. And they appear that they're out because they're engulfed in tree canopy. Well, if they are, then the customer can always call 311. And I think we're going to have somebody from 311 speak as to the reporting, as well as I understand we have Jeremy who'll speak a little bit more about the tree trimming itself. So that's reporting streetlight outages. Okay. There's also after that we have the just to kind of give you some expectations of what our timelines are. Once we fill out, we have the application that's filled out, we'll do a survey and we'll provide a written response in approximately 6 to 8 weeks. If the city determines the streetlight is necessary, of course, that's going to be in the survey. You'll get a map and you'll get the cost that I just mentioned before, the operating cost. And once that is paid, then my office will send an email to CenterPoint Energy to install the lighting. Now, Randy mentioned that he does all the capital improvement projects, and he issues work orders to install lighting in all those capital improvement projects. But as I mentioned earlier, the footprint that CenterPoint Energy has is huge, and the cities of Houston's footprint is huge. So there are different areas depending on what neighborhood you're from. It'll probably be a different consultant who will be issuing a work order to install that streetlight after they get my authorization. And for the most part, that's it for the application.
Is it okay if we take a few questions?
I'm fine with that.
Is there anyone with any questions?
I'll be here also throughout the presentation. So even at the end of the presentation, if it's okay with everybody, I'll be glad to answer a question that may have just come up.
Okay, thank you, Martin. And if there's any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and we can get them over to the right person.
Rachel, you're walking in and you're on camera, walking in.
Well, I have a question about lights.
Sure, how can I help you?
It's an interesting situation. There's one across the street from my house, which is the one for my actual street that I live on. But because I'm on a corner, there's also one for the major thoroughfare street. And that one, it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it gets even brighter than what it currently is. Is that possible for a light to get brighter overnight?
Well, that's a good question. Normally, is it possible? That typically doesn't happen only because the light itself is designed to provide a a certain amount of illumination. And is it possible? Yeah, it's possible that, but I find that rare. That's the first time I've heard of that. And maybe CenterPoint can, Randy Moorhead can add to that. But no, it's not typically, it doesn't typically happen because without getting into the actual mechanics of how these lights work,
Mhm.
they first turn on, and because there's a current, a drive current that has this driver that acts like a ballast, and it turns on the light, and it's constant. Are there fluctuations in the voltage? Yeah, there could be fluctuations in the voltage, but typically those are lower voltage fluctuations, and if anything, it would get lower. But that's assuming that the light. There's a lot of things that got to happen for that to actually occur.
Well, I'm just curious because if I wake up and I turn the wrong way, because it zooms into my room, and I'm like, it's like daylight to me. Well, it feels like daylight because it gets so much brighter than it was when I went to bed. And
Well,
I don't understand that light at all.
Well, you bring an excellent point. Now, let me tell you a little fix for that. And maybe and I'm glad you brought these are excellent.
Better curtains?
No. That's no. Actually, CenterPoint Energy is able to provide a shield in back of the street light to where it can mitigate some of the light that's coming into your bedroom.
Yeah.
I just need to know about that.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and if I know about that, then I can contact CenterPoint Energy because they don't want the light. They don't want any light trespassing into people's bedrooms, and we certainly don't want you losing any sleep because, or for that matter, buying any new curtains. We don't want to do that. But
well, any excuse for that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime.
Yes, I mean, but I don't. I don't know what it is. That's a good question. I'll certainly look into it though, and I'll send something back to Benny. Maybe he can disseminate that information. But that's typically not. Randy, you're on the line. Have you heard of that happening at CenterPoint where the light gets brighter?
No, sir, I haven't. But we've all seen the wood poles out there. Some of them have a slight tilt, which may be directing the light towards a certain area a little more than it should. But we do offer the shields, and it's basically on the LED lights. It's kind of like a flat, the LEDs. I don't know if you've ever looked at one, but they have a bunch of little diodes in there, and the shield just kind of shields the back of that diode. It fits up flat against the luminaire, and that prevents the backlight from, as Martin was saying, trespassing. But yeah, it could be something that maybe the wood pole is angled a little off, or maybe the light's angled off. But I haven't heard of one getting brighter. But anything's possible, I guess. So, but yeah, we would need to get that light number and have a crew go out and check it. That would be the easiest solution. And
now, what I would like to add though is that what you just mentioned right now is indicative of what I've seen in the past with a different type of technology. We just mentioned that the technology that is used now is LED lighting. That's basically solid state lighting. It's the beauty about it is that there's no warm up time, if you will. If you've ever been inside of a gym or somewhere where you've seen the lights turn off and because of a lightning flash outside, and then they slowly start turning back on until they become to their full brightness, that's indicative of a bulb type of light, not LED light. So that's where I would see that. But if it's an LED light, these they're instantaneously on and off. And that's the beauty about it, because do they turn off sometimes on the lightning flash? Yes, they will, because the photocell on top of the fixture sees daylight at that moment when there's a bright lightning strike. And then it sees dark again, but it'll turn it off when it sees that daylight due to the lighting. But then when the lightning's gone, then it'll turn it back on instantaneously. So it's but that's the way LED lights work. That's the beauty about it, and that's different than the bulb light. That's kind of like what was described right now.
Well, there are two different lights, because they don't. I mean, the lights, the one across from my house on my street, and the light that's over there on the thoroughfare, they're two different lights. They're not the same light.
They would be different lights, because on the one in front of your house is a local road. I'm presuming that's a residential area, and you live
Yes.
at the local. Okay, and then the major thoroughfare, as mentioned in the application, it's a higher wattage.
It sure is.
Yeah, and that's because it's illuminating a major thoroughfare.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Hi, this is Natasha. I have a question. So in my community, right, in Alief Westwood, but especially in Westwood, as part of our complete communities, we've talked about adding more lights. And so if I want to request 10 lights and I don't want the brown poles, right, the brown wood poles, and would prefer the metal ones, do I request, right, metal poles, and then y'all send me back a cost of 200 times whatever, however many poles I want, and then you put them up? Or do I have to do it for each individual pole? And I say that because there are certain parts of the Westwood side where it's dark, where the prostitution is happening in a greater space. So then if we put some more lights, even though it's not in a residential area, it's considered residential, even though there's no homes there, right? If we put more lights, could we ask for the metal ones? But then my other concern is, given that where hurricanes and windstorms are one sturdier than others, in the sense of, right, hurricanes, wind
I'm
related.
sorry. I'm hearing a lot of background noise where I guess somebody has their mic on. The last part I heard you say, I think you were the gist of it is that, can you request, if there are wood poles out there, can you request metal poles in lieu of wood poles? Is that my understanding?
Correct. As we're adding new lighting fixtures, right? So like one part of Bissonnet has like these old wooden poles, and I know y'all been fixing them because I've been seeing CenterPoint coming out there. But there's these little cross streets where there needs to be lights. And so do I request the metal poles instead of the wood poles? Because we want to be able to put like Christmas wreaths on, things to decorate around the metal poles. That's easier than those big giant, wood poles.
I'll let Randy talk about the decorative or decorations that you'd like to put on their poles. But to answer your question, the city, if there are wood poles out there, we are going to authorize the wood poles. The city pays a pretty huge hefty bill for its lighting, and the wood poles are just much more cheaper for the city of Houston, and they do their job. Now on this cross street, if there aren't any wood poles, then yes, we're gonna authorize metal poles. The determination of the metal poles or the wood poles, that'll be done by my from the city. And one of the things that we have to understand is that when you try to install metal poles where wood poles are at, sometimes the only place to install metal poles is under the wood poles, and then you have electrical clearance issues there. So that's also another issue that we look at that we can't do, and it just doesn't meet the safety code, and CenterPoint won't install it. So there's a few things that we look at. There's a cost perspective, and then there's a safety perspective, just for the metal poles in a wood pole area.
And so are the metal poles and wood poles handled about the same, like with like the windstorms and hurricanes? Are one safer than the others as we're looking at climate and things like that too, as part of our complete communities, making it safer. And
Well, the metal posts are designed to handle a certain wind speed. The wind speed, if I remember, was 125 mile per hour wind speed, and they're designed to do that. I know where you're talking about, because way back, maybe 20 years ago, when we had some pretty high hurricane winds, you had poles that were leaning, the metal poles, and then now and the wood poles, that happens. But you get a high enough wind, it's like I'm going to huff and puff and blow your house down. It's going to go down. Now, are they designed to withstand the typical hurricane wind loading? Yes, they are. And Randy, if you'd like to speak a little bit more about that later, that's fine. But they're pretty much both. They're going to both be able to handle these wind loads.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
But thank you for asking. Good question.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, so I was just wondering about the wooden posts. A lot of them in my neighborhood are either leaning or close to rotting. And my question was, how do you go about those posts? Does somebody come like randomly every year, or how often do they come and check and make sure that they're still like healthy woods and not leaning, or if they need some type of help standing up or whatever? How do we go about that, or what is the system, or how does it work?
That's an excellent question, and I'll let Randy. Randy, are you okay with chiming in on that request? Do they need to contact CenterPoint?
Yeah, so basically you're going to want, so there's 3 types of consultants at CenterPoint. We have overhead consultants, which would include your wood poles and your anything that comes off those wood poles going to meters to your home. We have underground consultants, and then we have streetlight consultants. So I am a streetlight consultant. I know they have formulas for the amount of lean tolerated in a pole. I'm not an expert in that field, but if you feel that it's an emergency, then you can call the customer service number and report that pole, and they can send someone out to see if it's threatening, if like if the ground has gotten soft or over the years and it's starting to uproot or something, they'll take that into effect, and if so, they'll create a ticket to replace it. But that would be my best bet, would be to report anything that's an emergency like that you feel that's leaning too far, to customer service. And then at that point, if you wanted to ask that representative who would be the contact for that area, if you wanted to take it a step further, they could give you that rep, and you could possibly meet that rep on site, and just take it from there. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Thanks. If there's not any more, Mr. Moorhead, if you wanted to continue with CenterPoint information.
Okay, sure. So let me share my screen here. I have a PowerPoint that goes over reporting streetlight outages, and let me know if you all can see.
I can see, Randy.
You can? Okay. All right. So basically, reporting a streetlight outage is very simple. And there's basically 3 ways here that I have listed. You can report it. I've got the website here, centerpointenergy.com/outage. And I'll take you to that page at the end of the presentation so you can see what it looks like. But you can do it from your computer, obviously. You can do it from your mobile phone, Android, iPhone, whatever you have. Or you can call customer service and report it that way. So typically what you're looking for is what Martin hit on earlier. There should be a 6-digit pole number that identifies that pole specifically. And it's in black and white reflective lettering. And I travel the city quite a bit. Sometimes there will be 5 numbers, 4 numbers, or no numbers. If you come across that situation, look across the street and get an address, or find the nearest address you can find and write it down. And you can report that based on that information, and we can kind of narrow down which light you're talking about based on that. So the next slide I have here is, so when you go to the centerpointenergy.com/outage, it's going to bring you to this page. Now this page, you can report electric outages in addition to streetlight outages. So it's a pretty handy tool. If your power goes out, you can click on the report electric outage. And if you're reporting a streetlight outage, you would click on the streetlight outage. And since that's what we're discussing, if you click on it, you're going to be brought to the next page. And there's a blue button in the middle. It says report a streetlight outage. And basically you click on that, and it's going to bring you to, and this is short form. I'll give a demonstration at the end, but basically it says, let's get it fixed. Tell us where to find the broken streetlight. So if you have the 6-digit number, you can key that in and hit the search button, and it will take you to that location. And you can click on the light and report it. Like if it's a light out, if it's blinking, if you notice that the shield is hanging, or anything like that. One thing I do want to hit on, if you have a pole down, like a knockdown, I wouldn't use this system. I would call customer service and report it, because that is typically hazardous, because obviously it's blocking a road and could have exposed wires. So you would want to report that to the 713-207-2222 number, which is customer service, and they'll get someone out there immediately to move the pole off the road so that traffic can continue to flow. And then that will also, they'll notify us, and we'll create a ticket to get the pole replaced. But if the more information you can provide that customer service rep, the better it is. So if you see the pole down, or if the pole's leaning at a 45-degree angle, if you can get the pole number, I mean, don't stop in the road and try to get the pole number. Maybe pull off and walk down the sidewalk and get it. Or if it's just too hazardous, just kind of remember where you are. Maybe get the next pole number if it's easier, and jot it down and just explain to the rep, hey, I was able to get the 2 poles north of this street light, or 2 poles south of the street light, and we can narrow it down from there. So, but as far as reporting on our, if we go back to the slide, you can do the 6-digit, and you can also do a street light address. If the 6-digit number, if for some reason is not on there, if it's came off over time, or if it's 4 digits or 5 digits and you can't get an actual 6-digit number. And then also a pretty neat feature, if you look to the right of that search bar, there is it's the second tab to the bottom right. It says locate me. And if you press that, it will take you to that location. I know, like, if you're, we're all traveling and most of us have our cell phones, you can save that link to your favorite on your cell phone and press that locate me button, and it'll take you right there to it. Or you could just save the streetlight number. It's just different options that we give you. So let's see. And this is an example. I know it might be hard to see, but the pink are the street lights at this Edgebrook Drive. And so if you were to click on one of those, it would tell you the street light number. It's probably just going to be best for me to go through the demonstration so that you can see it. But after you click on it, if you want to leave your name and phone number, and also there's a check mark box, notify me via email when the street light is fixed. And then you leave your email address and submit. Then once that ticket is created, you'll get an email and it'll give you the ticket number, and there's a reference at the bottom. Gives you a ticket number, the address, what you reported, if the lights stays on all day, or if it blinks, or if it's out, or if it's hanging, or whatever the issue is. There's multiple issues to choose from when you report that. It's like a drop-down box, which I'll show you. So let me try and see if we can go to this here. And let's see. Let me know. Can you all see this screen that I just put up, the new screen?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, if we go back about 3 slides, this is where you put in the link that I gave you. This is what it's going to take you to. And so basically we'll just go to report streetlight outages. Then you click here, report streetlight outage. And then it's going to take you to what I was displaying earlier. So let's just say, Martin, we were working on, what was that, 260068 earlier?
Correct.
All right, so see, it shows here 1 streetlight result. So if you want to report it, you can click it. And then to the right here, it's got a drop down. Light out, dim light, light hanging. If the street light's leaning, if it's on all day, car hit pole. And you can report like a damaged pole, like if you notice someone just hit it, but it's not in the street, you can report that. And you can also report this if it's a knockdown. The thing that you have to remember with this, we have 72 hours to respond to a streetlight outage. So if you report a knockdown through the website, it's not ideal, right? Because we have a 72-hour window and we want to get out there to clear the lane as fast as we can. So I would recommend the customer service route on that one. In addition to, there could be exposed wiring, depending on how bad the car or truck hit the pole. But any type of wires burning, anything like that, call customer service, and that's an emergency order. They'll get out there right away. So anything that you feel is not safe, I would call customer service and report it that way. And then if you have any additional comments that you'd like to add, you can do that as well. Let's see. All right, something I want to try and show you all. This is a delete button. So just in case you hit the wrong button, you type a 2. If you were reporting a light number and you reported the wrong light, you can just hit delete and start over here. And let's go zoom to all. Let's see here. Should take us to it. All right. So if you click on the street light, it'll take you to that street light. So another cool thing I'd like to show you. So let's say all 4 of these lights are out. Okay. You can click on select on map and just left click and drag, and it'll say here now streetlight 4 results, and you can report all of those. See report all here. You can report all of those streetlights in one transaction, so to speak. So that's a nifty tool that we have also. If if there's a street out or if there's 10 lights out, typically these would be underground street lights because they're fed underground, and more than likely they're if you see construction going on in an area and the street lights are out, then more than likely there is a city improvement project going on that Martin and I are aware of, and we have already planned either temporary lighting to go at these locations or to have the lighting fixed, which we're working on currently now. But I don't know, does anybody have any questions with what I've went over so far on how to operate the website? Like I said, this is the locate me. You press that, it's going to ask you to allow, the computer or your mobile device to take you to that location. And so now everybody knows where I live, so I'm going to scroll up. But anyway, these are all City of Houston streetlights. Well, not necessarily, but I know that because these are the City of Houston south of Canino. And so click on the light, it tells you this is a 115 watt LED. And also, if you wanted to get a quick street view, just to kind of know that you're in the right place, if you click on this, I think it's a little man, kind of like on Google Maps, and it'll show you kind of like a vicinity map of where you are if you were unsure. So I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Or I would like to tell you that so when a street light gets reported that it's out, we get 72 hours to respond. If it is a cable, if the technician goes out and it's a cable cut, we get 2 to 3 weeks to make that repair if it's a cable cut, because that crew can't fix that. They have to refer it to another crew, which in turn will have to go out there and rebore that circuit and replace that underground circuit or circuits, whatever deems to be the problem. It could be somebody hit a wood pole from where the lights are being fed from. There's many factors, but we've dealt with them all. So, Martin, can you think of anything that I missed on this, or anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you did an excellent job, Randy. I think I'd only like to let everybody know that when Randy mentions underground, and because the wires are underground, he's referencing metal pole lights, specifically metal pole lights.
Yes.
And so and then when he mentions overhead, or it's because the wires are aerial and they're up in the air, and those are commonly referred to as overhead lights.
And those are on the wood poles.
Correct. But I think Randy did an excellent job. I don't have any questions. I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions. But as Randy stated, everyone, CenterPoint does, per its tariff, have a timeline to go out there and make its first appearance. And by all means, they try to to fix light, and sometimes they can fix the light on that first trip. But if there is a cable problem, then they got to refer it back to engineering, who then writes special orders to send a different crew out there with a digger and so forth to find that underground cable and repair it. So that's why it takes longer for that.
Any questions, anyone?
Yes.
Look it up.
Okay, so I know this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but I was just wondering what a proper lighted block or whatever you would call it, does it have to have a certain amount of lighting poles per block? Is supposed to was it supposed to have only lights on of the street or both sides? I was just wondering because in my neighborhood there's certain blocks that only have lights per se on the right hand side, like two of them, and the rest is like pitch black. Or um, I mean, it's just I just wanted to know what is supposed to be, or how many posts per feet are there supposed to be, or I don't know. I just wanted
And
Sure.
to know that.
Randy, I think I can, if you let me, I'll address that. You have a very good question on that. So street lighting is not automatically installed. You know, the city doesn't have a program where it automatically goes down the street and says we need lights here and we need lights there. We leave that up to the citizen, the constituents to request the lighting, thus the streetlight application. So if you feel that you don't have enough lighting, well, then you'll send that request in and we'll determine if not enough lighting is there. But to answer your question about, you know, what does it take to light up a block? Based on our studies, a light every 200 feet should adequately illuminate the road. But we all know this beautiful city and we love all these trees, and some people just don't trim the trees. And where you could have two lights on the block that, you know, if it weren't for the tree canopy, you wouldn't have an issue. And so that's why you contact 311 and they go and they'll look into it and see what can be done about clearing some of that tree canopy. CenterPoint Energy does not clear trees. That's on the city side. And so again, and I'll have you know, maybe Jeremy can add more to that later. But the lighting is for metal pole lights is 200 feet, and for wood pole lights is 150 feet, 200 feet, depending. So no, that's a good. That's a good question.
And it's either or is it either it could either be on the left side or the right side, or
Yes,
it doesn't have
yes.
to be on both sides.
No, well, if it's a major thoroughfare and the roadway is 44 feet or greater, it is required on both sides. But for your residential
Okay.
local streets, it could be all on one side. It could be one on one side and one across the street diagonal. So it just depends, because you see, when we get the request where we would like to make them diagonal and not all on just on one side, if one side of the road is completely engulfed with tree canopy, then you can't install any lighting on that side. And so you want to install the lighting where you can, and it's not in the lighting is going to work its best along the road, and not put it on the other side. We typically like to have it what you would call staggered. In other words, a staggered pattern where you have one on one side of the road, and then 200 feet further down you have another one, but on the opposite side of the road, and then come back down. But that's not always possible, depending on the tree canopy.
Okay, I just wanted to know how that structure worked, just because I kind of want to like, study. Or I've looked around my block and I've noticed like things that you guys have mentioned, that there is in smaller streets that there's only probably perhaps two posts per block on the right hand side, but definitely there's major big trees and branches that are blocking it off, and totally, yes, it makes a difference. But okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions, or we can move forward?
Everybody good? Any other questions?
Okay, we're moving on to 311, but I don't see my rep on the line. So that information they was going to provide, I can provide that to y'all in the email, or if you have any additional questions for 301, you can put them in the chat, and I can get those questions over to them. But we can move forward with Urban Forestry with Jeremy Burks. You have the floor.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. Let me pull my screen up here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right, 1 second here. Can you guys see this presentation here that says teaming up with 311? Is that coming through?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
I see it.
All right.
Well, not
I was
here.
gonna piggyback off of information that Isaiah was gonna provide, but since he's not here, I'll move forward here. But this is a presentation that we often give to our customers, encouraging them, to utilize the 311 call center when reporting their tree issues. So why should we call 311? Well, for us, I mean, it really helps us to streamline our operations. When I first became a manager here in Urban Forestry over 10 years ago, we would receive a lot of requests for service through email, phone call, text message, walk-ins, or customers would email X Parks. They would go through the mayor's office. Just a lot of different avenues, for the same type of service. And so it became very apparent to me that we needed a way to kind of streamline things so that we can provide a more prompt response, because operating in that fashion, it's with so many trees across the city, and we're servicing the entire city. A lot of things will fall through the cracks. So I highly encourage anyone needing tree service to utilize the 311 call center. And to report those issues, as Randy and Martin have already explained, you can by phone, call 311. They accept requests through email, 311@houstontx.gov. And then there's also an online option, which I'll try to demonstrate here briefly. Now, what information do we need? We're going to need the physical address, or the nearest physical address of where that light pole exists. A pole number is also helpful, and then your contact number, because we want to be able to provide an update to you to let you know that we've honored your service request, or what work we will do, what work we won't do. What services do we provide here in Urban Forestry? I know we're talking about street lights and tree trimming, but I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what we do in general. We remove trees, we trim trees, we plant trees, and we grind stumps. So when you call 311, each of these services may be requested at any time. And so what happens next? So after you call 311 and you've submitted your request, typically we try to operate within 48 hours. We're going to have a forester on site to inspect the location. But I'll be honest with you right now, we are a little short-staffed, so we are unable to meet the 48-hour timeline. But once we get those vacancies filled, we will be back to meeting that time frame. So within 48 hours, we want to inspect the location, determine the scope of work that's needed, and create a work order right there on site. And then, as I mentioned, contact the customer just to let you know that, yes, we have a work order in place to trim this tree, kind of give you an idea of the time frame that's going to take to happen, or to let you know that we won't be trimming the tree. A lot of times we get, requests because people actually do want the light to shine on their property. You know, maybe they want the light to shine on their front porch. And as Martin mentioned earlier, you know, streetlights are intended to illuminate the street. And so for those reasons, we don't prune trees if they're not interfering with the street light, and you know, we just wouldn't authorize pruning for light to illuminate someone's private property. But in cases where foliage is impeding streetlights, yes, we will prune. And this goes for public trees and also private trees. Now, when it's you know, because some private homeowners you know, don't take as good of care of their trees as they should, and they overgrow, and if it's, you know, causing a hazard to public safety or preventing some type of view obstruction or just general view problems for motorists, that's when the city will get involved, and we'll have a conversation with that property owner, and we will move forward with pruning that tree. Minimal pruning, but just enough to make sure that there's visibility on the roadway. Okay, so that concludes our piece as far as you know, tree trimming. But while I had you guys' attention, I did want to mention you know, our tree planting programs. I don't know what plans you have in place for planting trees throughout your neighborhoods, but we do have a program called Neighborwoods, where we work with civic clubs, HOAs, you know, various groups within the community to plant trees throughout a neighborhood. And through this program, our foresters, our team will basically canvass your neighborhood to identify places to plant trees. And from there, we will do our due diligence to, you know, get the underground utilities checked. We will purchase the trees and we will deliver them to you during the planting season. And so the only responsibility of the property owner would be to plant the tree and water it. And, you know, we're looking to increase tree canopy wherever possible. So if there is any interest in this program, I'd love to be a help to you. And so this was just kind of a shot of our
I would love the
application. I can send
information.
it. Okay, great. Awesome. I'll get that to you.
Yeah, I'd like
Well,
that
that-
information too.
Do you mind putting it in
Okay.
the chat?
I'm actually hopefully by Friday I get a call back with it's called a Green Ambassador Greener Golfton Project. I should be joining them soon, and it's practically basically about that, find a greener and plant plants around the neighborhood. So I would definitely would love to work with you if you guys could help us. That would be
Okay.
awesome.
Definitely. Definitely. Sounds good. Okay. Are there any other questions that I can answer?
How do we get a hold of you, Jeremy?
You can you can reach me by email. My email address is my name, Jeremy, Jeremy, .Burks.
Would you mind putting your
B-U-R-K.
info on the chat?
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If any of our speakers, if you don't mind putting your contact information in the chat, that would be really helpful so we can pass that along.
Were there any more questions for any of the speakers this evening? If there are no more questions, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. The next steps will be for you captains to take all this information back to your safety groups so we can begin reporting the street lighting, the tree canopy, and yeah, let's get these projects rolling with the street lightings. Y'all have a great evening. If there are any more questions, you can email me or contact your lead planners with any questions regarding the street lighting tonight. The recording I will provide once we can get it downloaded, and we can provide that out and put it on our Let's Talk Houston pages as well.
Thank you,
you all.
Thanks, everyone.
And yeah, have a great holiday break as well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You
also.
also. And thank you for the invite.
Oh,
Thank
no
you
problem.
for-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question: will we have any meetings monthly, or this is just a one-time thing?
This was a one-time thing, and if as the captain or whoever is the representative in your community, you can have your own separate meetings regarding how you want to pursue the street lighting campaign.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the information. It was definitely beneficial and informative. Thank you.
You're
Have a
very
good
welcome.
night, everyone.
You
All right.
too.
Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
That was a good meeting.
Yes, it was. Yes, a lot of information, but get information.